Welcome to Put It in the Books podcast, New York Sports, where we are here for news all New York sports, but with analysis for teams that we follow passionately.
For me, I'm Ryan. That would be the Buffalo Bills and the New York Mets, and the New Jersey Devils sometimes.
And I'm Patrick. Also the Mets, Islanders, and Giants. Now, today we're going to just be looking into a little bit of the Mets offseason, but before we do that, click subscribe. It's our first podcast. Give us a like, and within the first 250 people that subscribe us, we will be auctioning off the New York Mets black Francisco Lindor jersey. What do you think about the Mets bringing back the black jersey?
I like it. My only problem with it has always been the lettering. I'm not the biggest fan.
I'll give you that one. I look at it this way, man. As long as, they stay maybe like a third jersey, it's on special occasions.
I actually really like the blue jersey, though.
I don't know. Something about the blue jersey with the silver lettering I've always loved.
Well, I love it, too. And so the black jersey, I'm more so happy that our owner is just doing it for the fans.
There you go.
He listened to every fan on Twitter. They said bring back the black, so he did.
There you go. And that brings us into the offseason. Uncle Steve Cohen, new owner of the New York Mets. Now, you already all know that. We're not going to go in depth to that, but Ryan brought up one fantastic point. Having an owner that was a fan, it's amazing. He's going to do it for the fans.
Not to mention we get to skip the whole J-Lo A-Rod breakup.
Oh, that would have been messy if that kid...
That would have been the most Wilpon way to move the franchise. First thing we're dealing with is a divorce or end of an engagement.
If that would have happened, I could just see with everything Mets fans have been through, it'd either be, excuse me for saying this, I know it's horrible, mass suicide or people converting to be Yankees fans.
Nothing worse.
So, what does this offseason bring us? We missed out on the big 3 free agents, which I don't care. It brought us a brand new catcher, a once-in-a-lifetime superstar shortstop, and I think most of all, hope.
Let's start with McCann.
James McCann. Wow, James McCann. Everybody wanted Real Muto. Real Muto, I don't want to come to New York. If he signs, he's going to get killed by the media or the fans once his first slump. And don't get me wrong, even the best players go into slumps. But it seems like with New York, it's always what have you done for me lately with the fans?
It is, and if we had locked him up to the deal he wanted to come to New York, theoretically, he would have been here until he was no longer able to catch, and we'd have to hope that he could DH. Plus, add in the fact that, catcher's knees go. We don't know if the DH is going to be around. And overall, I just don't think he was heads and shoulders above McCann.
I 100% agree with you. And, I'm not trying to really badmouth a lot of fans out there, but fans pay way too much to statistics. And even just the mainstream statistics, batting average, home runs, RBIs. But when you put McCann side by side, defensive and offensive statistics with Real Muto in the last 4 years, McCann is on par with him. McCann might have started out his career slowly, but within the last 4 years, he's picked it up.
I think he's done a fantastic job getting back to where people actually thought he should be. So, yeah.
But don't get me wrong. James McCann's offense, some offense from him would be nice, but it's not what we needed.
No.
It's his framing, his ability to throw out runners. It's his ability to control a game and game plan with the pitchers. We need that defense beyond the plate.
I'd say the number one thing. By the way, I'm going to sidetrack for 1 second here. So you know a little bit about us.
I forgot that.
Was a catcher. Was a college pitcher. And we'll occasionally have guest starring from people like my wife, who was also a high-level catcher. So we're going to break down positional issues. And the number one positional issue with the Mets last year was framing a pitch and throwing people out. That is one of those things that also cascaded onto guys like Noah Syndergaard,
who came out and publicly said, I do not want Wilson Ramos to catch me.
Yeah. So what happens as a pitcher when you're already having issues keeping runners close and your catcher has no ability to throw them out at second? You start messing with your mechanics to get the ball off the plate faster. You start missing pitches, and you just mess up your entire way of pitching. So I'm glad that we have a catcher now who will make our pitchers comfortable on the mound.
Now, with that said, when you have someone like Noah Syndergaard on the mound who, for as much as we all love him, as much as talented, as good as his stuff is, if he's having trouble holding runners on to begin with, and your catcher can't throw out base runners, that start messing with his head on the mound.
Yes. So hopefully this is actually going to fix Noah Syndergaard, in addition to just having the benefit of solidifying the rest of the pitchers. It makes Stroman happy. It makes DeGrom happy. We don't have to have special catchers for special pitchers.
And this is not a slight against Tomas Nido. He's a good defensive catcher. DeGrom and Syndergaard love throwing to him. But now we won't have to say, we have a big game against a top team, but we need our backup catcher playing that game.
Yep.
But who's this going to do wonders for? I think Peterson.
Peterson's the next up. It's true.
Yeah, such a young pitcher. I think this is going to be great for him. But that also brings us to, oh my God, the big acquisition of the offseason.
Francisco
Lindor. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last month and a half, Francisco Lindor and Cookie Carrasco are New York Mets. And with that, we say goodbye to Ahmed Rosario, Andres Jimenez, both shortstops. But with Lindor's extension, it makes us be able to swallow that trade a little better.
For me, a lot of my Mets friends, are complaining about Jimenez's talent and what he could become. I will always take the solid all-star over a prospect, because we don't know what the prospect's going to turn into. But a young all-star like we got, you cannot put a price tag on having that instead of this person could become great.
I agree with you 100%. You can always say that person is destined for greatness. And as Mets fans, we've seen it all too much.
Lastings Millage.
I was actually going to bring up Lastings Millage, but I was also going to say Billy Beane, who was highly touted as a 5-tool outfielder coming out of high school.
Do you remember when we traded Carlos Gomez to get ourselves Johan Santana?
Yeah.
I make that trade every day. Got us a no-hitter?
Finally.
Took 130 some odd pitches, but he got it.
So we got to look in the present. Jimenez might have a great career, but Lindor, he's a game changer. He's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. You get a few a year. You got a handful of shortstops in the league for 30-some-odd teams. That's not a lot, especially at probably the most high-profile position on the field.
Yep. And having him sign for the rest of his career, pretty much.
Now,
that's a nice throw-in.
Now, I hope the fans do realize, everybody, 10 years, $341 million. 11 years, $363.3 million. It did not affect his QO season this year, so he's with us until 38 years old.
I'm fine with that. Hope we will see how the DH gets affected by that going forward. But, I mean, the next thing you have to worry about is how does this affect the next contract that we need?
So, Michael Conforto, and I also look at Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom has an opt-out after 2 years.
Yes, he does.
2022, sorry.
We'll see. I don't know if he'll take that opt-out, depending on how his career is going.
No, I don't either, and I think... So, backtrack 1 second. What I think really the Francisco Lindor trade does is, whatever it does on the field, whatever it does off the field is fantastic, but the one most important thing I think everybody is missing, it was going back to Stroman when he took the qualifying offer, and now Lindor. Those two players, no matter what your feelings are towards them, validated Steve Cohen as an owner that's going to be proactive and validated that the New York Mets are here to stay. Yep.
We're no longer the cut-and-run team where we'll trade for someone and let Mike Hampton go.
It's, like salt in an open wound you got going on right there. So now if we go back forward, when I brought up DeGrom does have that opt-out. But now that I think he sees that the team is on the verge to getting that World Series he wants, and DeGrom has publicly stated this spring training, he wants to stay with the Mets for life, and he's working towards the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
But he wants that World Series title,
yep,
which is very important. So I see in either this year or next year, I don't see DeGrom opting out, but I do see him pulling what Clinton Kershaw did and renegotiating to get a raise.
Yeah, I can see that. But the big name we got to worry about is Conforto.
All right, so this brings me back to George Springer. Springer gets 6 years, $150 million from the Blue Jays. The Mets were matching the money, but they did not want to give him the 6 year. Why? And with a guy in his mid-30s, almost mid-30s. How much longer is he going to play center field?
No, not much. He's 33.
Yeah, he's 33 now. So you think 2 to 3 years maybe left in center field?
And then we reopen the same issue we had to begin with, which is who do we have who can play center? We've got this guy who can play left or right. But
Yeah.
hopefully that's going to be Conforto in right field. And then, nobody's giving him credit. But when we got Lee,
Khalil Lee?
Khalil Lee,
Yeah.
that is a future center fielder right there.
And you still have Pete Crow Armstrong developing. So here's the thing. Springer, the Mets did not want to budge on the 6th year because of his age. Now, I hope he does well with the Blue Jays. I'm not saying anything bad about the guy. I would have taken him at the right contract. Even though he's starting off the year on the deal, but Conforto, he does have super agent Scott Boras behind him. I know, Ryan says it all right there with that little huff. But Scott Boras has a talent for getting all of his players the maximum contract he can, even if they are not worth it. So that does worry me a bit. But I can see Conforto getting maybe 7 years, $182 million, anywhere to 10 years to $260 million to keep a core of young players together, and that is
keep him under $200 million. That'd be fantastic.
The only reason I put $260 in there for 10 years is because it's $1 million more a year than what Springer's making, and it's the same deal Conforto took over Tatis. Lindor over Tatis. Sorry.
It's that $1 thing that A-Rod put in his contract back in the day.
Exactly. So I can really see Cohen within the next few years making a hard push at Conforto this year. You're going to have Nimmo, Alonso, Smith. You got a lot of young players. Stroman, however you feel about how he opted out last year, we can't question that because the pandemic was a very weird year.
I was more mad about Cespedes, but
well, hey, you pack up and leave your hotel. How can you not be mad at that? But Stroman has said, a Long Island boy who says he wants to stay. We want Noah Syndergaard to stay. We have a team on the verge of going into their prime that we can keep together for a long time.
It'd be very nice.
So what does this Lindor deal do for us? Well, it brings up an interesting question when it comes to our number 2 prospect, Ronnie Mauricio, shortstop. Move him to third, move him to second. I know you have some issues with second base, and we're not talking about Jeff McNeil.
No, we're talking about the Robinson Cannot. A man who doesn't like to run out a ground ball, who once, my favorite play that summarizes Cano was with the Nationals. Bryce Harper hit a ground ball, and it was an easy double play ball, but even the announcers were like, Bryce Harper didn't run out to first. Why didn't he run his way to first? Cano is turning the double play just because he can flub the transfer, or he's just going to do it at a snail's pace, and anybody can beat him to that bag.
Look, I honestly don't, and this is my personal opinion. A lot of things you're going to hear from Ryan are opinions if they're not followed by statistics or facts.
Yes.
But my opinion here is that I don't think Steve Cohen's going to put up with this. I mean, if you have McNeil kill it at second base, even if you have J.D. Davis not, fitting in at third, we could find another third baseman, but Cano, after 2 PED suspensions, I honestly think there's either a clause in his contract that they're going to nullify it or he's going to be bought out.
Can hope.
Yeah.
It is funny, though, that Cohen's first day, within his first week of owning the team, Cano gets popped for the PED.
You know what the funny thing is? Cohen has been very vocal on Twitter, except for that unfortunate short time he had to, close his account. But it was, he's spoken to Stroman, players, fans, welcoming new teammates to the team, talking to the media through Twitter, and the one thing he never brought up was Cano.
Yep. Never even mentioned it.
It's like it could have been a horrible black stain on him taking over the team.
So, looking forward.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That's enough past.
Yeah, enough past, ladies and gentlemen, because what I look at with Stroman and Lindor coming back to the team and validating Cohen that he's here to stay and the Mets are here to stay, what does it give us fans? I think it gives us hope. Even though we had a World Series run in 2015, even our 2006 run where, we lost in Game 7, Beltran staring at the curve down the middle of the plate, won't bring that up anymore. But every year after that, it has just seemed like monumental collapses after we have a good playoff run. So hope is the key here.
So what do you hope our record's going to be?
Wow. I'm predicting the Mets going on a 97-win season this year.
I would be happy with 92. I think that's all it'll take to win the East. I think it's us in Atlanta. It's between Atlanta and New York, the Mets.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the mid-90s to the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies have some players that are hotheads that will choke a teammate. So it's a lot like the 90s in Philadelphia.
Not to give up our location, but if anybody wonders, we are in the DC metro area, so we will have quite a few puns at Mr. Harper, so don't worry about that.
Yes, there will be puns at Mr. Harper. They'll be going after the Nats. We are still a little bit salty because we were supposed to go out with the DC Mets crowd and watch the opening series on TV together, and then COVID for the Nationals. So we're a little bit salty about that, but we are moving forward. Opening day against the Phillies, and so we've got our projections for our wins. Got playoffs. I'm thinking that, like I said, 92 will get us in the playoffs. Probably win the division. If we get 96, 97, we better win the division. So, looking at that, who are your key players for that to get to that magic number?
So, to be completely honest, you can always say, Jacob deGrom, Michael Conforto. Guys, we don't need to look at consistent players. Few players I think we need to look at is, one, Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso's got to turn it around.
He had a sophomore slump, and ladies and gentlemen, again, last year was a shortened season. It started late. They had to have a second spring training. A lot of superstars around the league had down years. You can't look at that. And everybody talks about a sophomore slump. But what I saw from Pete in spring training, and take it with a grain of salt, it was spring training. He hit well, but it's his defense that impressed me. He worked hard on that.
Yeah, he's definitely been working on his defense so that he can at least shine there. If we can get 260, maybe like 40 home runs out of him, I would be thrilled.
Well, if his defense is there, Dom Smith projected in left field. Dom works hard at left field, gets good defensively there. Then we won't have to worry about massive double switching for defensive replacements.
That'd be a nice... I got painful towards last year. And that, we got to look at our coach, too.
Luis Rojas, he comes in a very awkward situation. Carlos Beltran's hired, fired. Rojas comes in, has spring training, season gets shut down, has to revamp. His hitting coach, not on the bench because, Chili Davis, like a lot of people, especially when you're up in senior age, you have to worry about COVID. So Chili Davis was trying to do things virtually. And I think it affected Rojas and his game plans a lot.
Rojas also lost two pitchers, and his big bat. So I'm looking forward to this year. I think that he's going to be fine this year.
He comes from a baseball family. Yeah. It's in his blood.
Like one of the best baseball families ever.
The Alou family, it's just there. So I'm not worried about Rojas. One of my players to watch this year that I am worried about is J.D. Davis. Another player that slumped off with the bat last year. Again, we can come up with a lot of reasons, but he has now been given the keys to third base, and his defense is going to come into question. And the part that worries me is, and why he's my player to watch, it's the hot corner. You're getting missiles down there. Sandy Alderson has come out and said, I am comfortable starting the season with J.D. Davis at third base. Starting the season is the operative word.
Really committing there.
No, I honestly feel like if his defense struggles or he's struggling with the bat, I expect to change very, very quickly.
Yep. My player to watch is my personal favorite, Brandon Nimmo. You ever get to go to a baseball game with us? If you're in the D.C. area, folks, Ryan will be wearing his Nolan Ryan jersey with his Brandon Nimmo shirt underneath. Nimmo is my favorite, and I think we're going to have to see what comes out of him playing center field. Maybe he gets better defensively. He's solid left, but center it's a challenge. He is still one of the top 10 ranked center fielders somehow. And I am most interested in him turning around his batting average and staying the machine on getting on base.
Yes, and
that's why we need him leading off, and that is why we need him to just get on base.
So it's funny you bring up defense because I thought about this a lot. For the last few years, it was he's playing corner outfield, then he's moved to center field. Cespedes is in, Cespedes is out. The outfield has been a mess the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
So Nimmo, this is the first spring training that he's actually gone into where they said, you are the center fielder.
Second. Last year.
Second.
That's the other thing. He's coming back from that injury from last year.
Yeah, he had a horrible neck
He
injury.
himself on the wall.
Yeah. He had that neck injury in 2019 that kept him out most of the year. So,
Oh, wait, that was 2019.
No, it was 2019. He was out most of the year. So Nimmo, you got to look at it. Between the corner outfield and center field, there's a different way of tracking the ball. It has nothing to do with his arm. It has nothing to do with his ability to catch the ball or his speed in the outfield. And I just think the more reps he gets, and this goes for Dom Smith too, because I'm not sold on him being a left fielder, but if he works hard at it, both of them, they can pick it up. They can get better.
Yeah.
But the other thing you brought up that I thought was really interesting, we need the machine to be on base.
Yes.
And that brings me up to what a lot of people are worried about, and a lot of people, nobody's given Nimmo credit. Whether it's been fans, experts on TV, MLB Network, it's always Dom Smith this. Like if it was Springer, it was going to be Dom and left. Where was Nimmo? Mm-hmm. See, everybody I think pays attention to these big three statistics. Home runs, batting average, RBIs, which is fine. But I think the two least seldom ones that should be paid attention more, of course, is on-base percentage. Everybody's seen the movie Moneyball. If you quote Billy Beane, and I don't care how he gets on base as long as he gets on base.
Amen.
If Nimmo gets on base, whether it's Lindor or McNeil batting second, that gives them the ability just to get a hit or make contact to get a runner in scoring position for the big bats.
And Nimmo's a runner.
And Nimmo is a runner.
Watch him walk and then run.
So Nimmo gets on base, fantastic. On base percentage, very important. The other one is OPS. I think people don't understand that stat that much. Look, it's on base plus slugging. It's a way of seeing how much you get on base, but at the same time, slugging. And slugging does not mean home runs.
Nope.
It's a great way of showing us how everybody's driving the ball gap to gap and getting runners home. And I think those two stats need to be paid attention more.
Yeah, totally agree. And the one stat that I am eternally against, and you'll hear when Leah's on, she'll rant against it, is WAR.
Oh, wins above replacement. It's like plus minus in hockey. It's so subjective.
Bobby Abreu is one of the greatest players of all time somehow. Anyway.
He had a solid career, but we're not going to put him in the greatest of all time category. Brandon Nimmo, who are you looking at? Okay, look, ladies and gentlemen, we have a young outfield, has a lot of potential. We got a young infield with a superstar now, a lot of potential. The plate's solidified. Carrasco on the DL, Noah coming back from Tommy John. The way Lucchesi pitched in spring training, he impressed me.
Yeah. I think we've got a lot of young arms that can fill in here. But hopefully they don't have to fill in too long.
Yes.
That's the easiest. That's basically, I pray that we win I'm just going to go out there and do my best. Pray to God that we get the W. It's the boilerplate answer. We have young arms that can just fill in. Hopefully they can hold until we're back on track. Injuries.
As much as I liked Oliver Perez, but when he started for the Mets, it was like, uh-oh.
Oh, Oli Perez.
So the pitching rotation, solid with depth. Our biggest question right now, even though we have some injuries there, we'll be fine. It's going back to that bullpen, and Seth Lugo starting the year on the DL is not a great way to start with that.
No, and then we've got Betances, who no idea what he is right now. Trevor May was a fantastic addition. I will go on record and say that I think Edwin Diaz is turning it around this year. He pitched well last year. Pitched very well last year, except for, one or two blown saves.
I think he had 4 or 5 blown saves the whole year, but 1 or 2 of them really bad. But
beginning of the year.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing that, you'll hear me complain a lot about Twitter because, people's opinions are opinions, but everyone was bad-mouthing Diaz. He hasn't pitched well since he became a Met. No, as Ryan alluded to, he actually did pitch very well last year. It was a short year, but his stats were better. Now, I think a lot of fans are still jaded from the 2019.
Yeah.
But as a pitcher, what did you see in 2019 that Diaz was off?
Diaz, when he came in, he was at first he was lights out. Everyone forgets that he started off really well. Then he left a hanging slider and let that get pulverized. I forget who it was, but that was the first blown save for him. If you watch his pitching after that, he has two primary pitches: two-seamer fastball that runs into the righties, and a slider. He started overthrowing the slider because he got freaked out by the fact that he was getting hit. So he started overthrowing. His slider came in flat, got crushed. And his two-seamer, you would watch him, and that's when he started hitting batters a lot. You'd see the two-seamer's tail, and it hit a batter at like 99 or 100. And you'd be like, why is he constantly hitting people? That two-seamer, if you throw it wrong, it'll just run and run into the batter. So you have to be very careful with it. He was overthrowing every pitch because he was just trying to make up for the fact that he was, blowing saves. And the further you get in your head, you become a bad pitcher. Then you take years of work and you throw it down the drain.
Ryan and I, we happened to see that live September, which basically killed the Mets when they were trying to make the late season playoff run. We were at the game where the Nationals came back. We were front row. Nationals came back 7-0. Kurt Suzuki hit that walk-off home run.
That was brutal.
And I think there was 10 of us there at the time, and
we were on Sports Center.
Yeah, we were on Sports Center. To this day, I still laugh at that, but it's heartbreaking. It summed up the season Diaz had. Now, my question is, catchers. The catcher behind the plate, could that mess with their mechanics? Game planning.
I think that McCann will give a better game plan.
Okay.
And I think that our defense is going to help him out. Because improving defense always helps a pitcher, whether it be the catcher, the infield behind him. If he feels more comfortable on that mound, he's not going to think, I have to throw this ball 102 miles an hour. Because the only person I've ever seen do 102 easy and not worry is probably Nolan Ryan. Randy Johnson did it pretty dang well. And for closers, Aroldis Chapman did it for a few years, but even he's getting tagged up recently.
Which always proves velocity means nothing without placement.
Velocity means nothing unless you're hitting a bird or you throw it right over the plate and then you can watch it go really far. So Diaz, I think he's going to have a good run this year. I'll say he saves 50 games this year.
All right. 50. I'm going to go with 42. But that's just because I believe the Mets offense is going to take them into higher average win.
Okay.
That's the only reason. I think they're going to score more runs this year.
That'd be really nice, actually.
You brought up another question mark. They seem to have defense. Now, you have to look at it this way, too. And this is Pete Alonso worked hell of a hard job. I can't talk today. He worked so hard on his defense. Yeah, don't laugh at me. He worked so hard on his defense. He looks so much better. We'll see what that does in the regular season. But up the middle, Lindor's addition, up the middle, with his range and what he can do, it may not be up to Ray Ordonez's standards, but he's going to make Davis's life easier with his range towards third base and his arm.
And McNeil's got pretty good coverage second, too.
And McNeil at second base, that's going to be one dynamic double play duo out there.
Yeah, I actually was watching a clip of them working out together on it. Yeah. They look pretty darn good.
Well, so I just hope 92 to 97 wins.
I just really wish that one of my teams didn't have a slogan where I've got to believe or you got to believe and then believe. Just guaranteed win. I don't know if that's a saying for any team. The Yankees have, if we don't win every decade, we riot.
Been over a decade.
Now it's been over a decade, and Yankee fans are losing their minds.
Yeah, well, this is going to be interesting to see where the Mets swing in New York City. Are they going to be the redheaded stepchild, or are they going to take over?
I think whenever the Mets have that swagger, New York becomes a Mets town for a little bit. When we made the series 2015, you saw a lot more Mets jerseys out.
So you're saying the Meet the Mets in 84 to 84, 85, 86, that was swagger?
Yeah.
To do a horrible music video, that had to be some swagger there.
I know what you're talking about. I still love that song.
I didn't say the song, I said the video.
Oh, I love the video where the kids start off playing flip card. That's awesome. And they just All the Mets show up and drop their cards right in front of the kids. Also,
They better have been signed.
Anyway.
So, in this video at the end, we're going to drop our email address to our podcast. I'm curious, I'm sure Ryan is too, to see what you all think about what the Mets are going to be doing this year, to see where they stand.
Also, if you have any suggestions, things we want us to cover, that'd be a great ad.
Yeah. And if you ever want to join us, we will be adding phone calls in. We want to hear from fans. We want to hear, because we're just fans. Like I said, these are opinions of ours. We're looking at how players progress, they coming back from injury, and we're guessing. You can look at all the statistics in the world, but doesn't mean anything until they get on the field and prove it.
Yep.
And that brings me just to a quote of something that I think fits with the Mets in all sports. It was actually after the New York Giants signed Kenny Golladay. I knew nothing about him out of Detroit except the statistics and how good he is. And I was a little, because they kept comparing him to Plaxico Burress, and I was a little wary. I didn't want that arrogance coming.
License too?
Yeah, don't shoot yourself in the leg. I was a little wary on if he was going to come in with that arrogance. And in his first interview, he says, we got a lot of good players. I think we're going to put up really good numbers and have a high-octane offense, but that doesn't mean anything till we get on the field and put the work in. And I was really impressed he said that. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I think that's it for us today.
That is it.
So what you'll see from us a little bit more is you may see some solo videos of us with breaking news, or I'm going to do some Islander game recaps. But we're going to be coming to you, few first sessions recorded, but hopefully within a little while we'll be coming live weekly.
Yeah, and a draft special probably for the NFL.
Oh, yes. Get your fantasy drafts ready. Get a look out. Don't get me started on why a quarterback has to be number one all the time.
Well, I will go into that right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Howie Rose would say, put it in the books.